the Aqua contract is 46%. It's the largest chunk. Then we have capital items that take up 28% of that budget. We have debt at 11%. Other operating expenses at 15%. So obviously the Aqua contract and taking the debt out was what's left. And then transfer to reserves, as you can see, is a very small little sliver of red. So there's not, with the rates that we are recommending, there's not a ton of money that's going away to go into reserve. It's to get through capital and operating. The wastewater breakdown, the pie charts on the next slide, kind of similar to water. The contract is roughly about the same. It's representing 43%. Debt's at 19%. There's a larger transfer to reserves here. And then we have other operating expenses about 13%, and then capital, a smaller chunk at 7%. So I'll just go to, so that was just to give you the overview of the line by line. We have provided that as well, but that's to give you a visual, a line by line of the breakdown of the proposed budget. We'll get into some water capital here. And I'll just kind of read through and describe each project that is that's proposed. So we have a wellhead protection area study of $75,000, and that would be funded essentially from reserves. The wellhead protection area study aims to provide an understanding of local groundwater conditions and potential sources of contamination surrounding water wells that supply drinking water. The last study was completed for Beachburg and Haley town site water treatment plants, or treatment plant wells, in 2003. Since then, new wells have been drilled in Haley town site and significant development occurred in Beachburg. The next item is a Cobden water treatment plant roof replacement, estimated at $75,000. The roof at the Cobden water treatment plant is currently leaking, and during repairs it was determined that the roof is fragile and is at the end of its life. Then we have Cobden and Beachburg water treatment plant energy analysis of $40,000. Complete energy consumption analysis and install VFDs to reduce hydro consumption at Cobden and Beachburg water treatment plant. We have Beachburg and Cobden water treatment plant, and I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, but turbidity meter replacement. I probably didn't pronounce it correctly, but we can have our manager of that department clarify later on. Replace the turbidity meters at various locations within the process of the Cobden and Beachburg water treatment plants. We have a Beachburg water treatment plant submersible pump replacement. This would be funded from the rates. Replace submersible pump as per the Aqua capital asset study. And then we have Beachburg water treatment plant clear well repairs. And this would be concrete repairs to the plant's clear well. So there's our list for the water treatment capital items. On the next slide, there's two items for the water distribution. So two items for capital under water distribution. The first item is $17,000 fire flow and leak detection. The purpose of the analysis is to create a known flow rate demand in the distribution system, which causes the static pressure to drop to 20 psi. The result will provide a gallons per minute for each hydrant, which will be color-coded per NFPA standards, which is the national standard for firefighting. Then we have a $50,000 Cobden water tower inspection. Cobden water tower inspection, capital asset study for the Cobden drinking water system lists recoding of the water tower interior and exterior to address potential corrosion after 30 years of service in 2021 at a cost. We have the $50,000 there. So I'll move on just to the next slide. So those are the items that we have for capital. And we'll get into just the breakdown here of the units in water. And then I'll show you, I showed you earlier what the wastewater rate study called for. We'll show you what we've have come up with for which is in line with that rate study to fund these projects and operating. So here you can see the breakdown of our residential right through to our multi-residential units, and we have a total of 1,061 water user units. And then the following slide, we have our monthly, which is obviously probably the biggest part of this presentation at this point for water, is the proposed rate. So we're proposing that it would be a $6.70 a month increase to the residential metered rate, or sorry, not metered, residential water rate. So at that point, I'll turn it back to the chair, and then if we have questions, we can answer them and work through them, and probably redirect and hear from the manager of that department.
Thanks, Sean. Any questions? Okay, Mayor Moore. You'll need to put your microphone on.
Okay, I'm looking at capital for water treatment. Cobden Water Plant roof, is that one section of roof or is that both sections? Because there's two different sections and one's covered in solar panels.
I'll ask the manager to speak to that question, please.
Thank you, Sean. So it's the flat section, flat roof of the original building, not the expansion.
Okay, all right. And then at that time, can we put up some kind of deterrent for the birds then at the same time? I see that our last study for water wellhead was 2003. Do we know if we have to do that X number of years, or we just decided this year we're going to do it?
One thing that's changed is the new wells in Haley Station. So and that came up with one of the expansion for the of development for, over the year that it, with a new study and with the changes and that it will show that what properties can develop or not.
Okay, and this would probably also help then for at grant time? Do we know? Should help at
It would
grant
help
time?
with grants.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question goes to CAO, I guess. Whatever happened to the Beachburg tank replacement? Did that happen this year, or I see it's not on the budget?
I think Lane can answer that. If I can just on the wellhead protection, we're not in a source water area. I know there was a recent letter to the editor about the Cobden plant, but this is just due diligence. We know that there's some septics. All of Haley's on septics, and so is Beachburg, and Beachburg has had growth. But I know that Ivan had a development proposal for a severance where somebody did a study, and they determined that we weren't sure if additional lots could be accommodated in Haley, and that study will help us clarify and ensure that the drinking water systems are safe. So it's a little bit of due diligence in keeping with even our CIP that allows for septic replacement. So by doing this, it ties together for that purpose. But I'll let Lane speak about the tanks.
So is that going to be tested, is Haley's going to be tested as well as Beachburg and Cobden for leaks? Do we know, do we think we have leaks in Haley's or not? Do we
The
know?
leak detection that goes with the flow, my understanding, I know the treasurer talked about the hydrants, but it's also for leak detection as well. Lane?
That is correct. Yeah, the study will do all of our three systems, and typically it's with the hydrants, and they also do acoustic testing with the Haley station because there is no fire hydrant. They will do the usage from our meter coming out and do a calculation of what it should be, and we'll determine if there is leaks or not.
Okay, thank you.
And just the tanks.
Yeah, and then tanks. So there's two jobs that were extended. They were supposed to be part of the 2020 budget. There was the tanks was one of them. With the funding application, we I'm held off on it, but we weren't. We didn't get the grant, so we went back on doing them, and they're currently out for tender coming up shortly. So it will extend into 2021, but I'm allocated from the 2020 water budget.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Mackay?
Yeah, this question is to Sean. On this multiple residence, 5930, is that per unit? Just on the water comparisons.
Yes, so we're talking about this slide. Which slide, sorry, are we talking about? This,
It says water comparisons.
so it's a $5.37 per unit increase per month.
Okay,
the-
but is that the real charge, 5930 for a month now?
No, that's the 2020 monthly rate. 2021 would be 64.67 per month.
Okay, all right, but per unit? Like if
Per
there's
unit, yeah.
four- Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Counselor Nicholson?
Sean, just a question about, and this may have to go to Lane, the energy audit, what was it called? Energy analysis?
Yep.
I just want to get some perspective on that 40,000, which is a large number. I looked in the chart here of the expenses. I can't see energy as an expense. Is there some way we can relate that? Like if we're spending 20,000 to analyze Beachburg, how much are we spending on energy right now there? Is that what the study is about, or have I got it wrong?
I'll defer to Lane.
It's in the contract.
Yeah, so the hydro expense is in the Amakwa contracts. So they're included in that. This project here will audit the two plants for the baseline consumption. Then also install VFDs, various speed drives, which won't see a peak and when the motor start up. It will gradually come on, and it'll be cheaper on our hydro. So the one thing it'll affect us that hopefully if we can bring down the cost for hydro, we can see a lower cost in our contract with Aqua.
So just that 20,000, say, for Beachburg, I'm assuming it's just half. It includes the purchase of these variable speed
That is
regulators?
correct. That is correct. And then we'll also apply for some funding also, like to get back from that.
Excellent. Okay, that makes it clear for me. Thank you.
Counselor Olmsted?
Yeah, just two questions. First one is on the roof replacement as well. I guess I'll just go straight to Lane if you don't mind. Did we do that inspection ourselves, Lane, or did we hire that out?
So we actually hired out because it was determined that it was leaking. So we hired a local roofer to look at it. When they came in and tried to repair the area, it was too fragile, so they stopped doing it. And then Aqua actually hired a company to come in and do an audit on this building and our other buildings, our water and sewer buildings, and it was determined that it was done, that it passed its, it's a useful life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think, and you answered that that was on just the old part of the building itself, not the new building. Right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And second question, Sean, is on the water tower inspection. Is that for an inspect only? You mentioned the recoding and that the interior. I would assume the 50,000 is just to do an inspection?
And again, I'll just defer to Lane as he's more familiarity with
Right.
these than I do.
Thank you.
That is correct. The capital forecast had it for this year, but talking with Aqua that we should do an inspection first and make sure to do an inspection and see what we have to do before we do our coatings.
Do we have any idea when the last, any type of major renovation was done on the water tower? I don't think anyone's been done in my term of council.
I might ask Steve if he knows.
No, in your term of council, Councillor Olmsted, there's been camera work done inside, and the coating inside at that point seemed okay. This is some years back, though. So there's been no major work done on the tower.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
Mayor Moore?
There was work done on the tower because the tower was emptied. Fire had to truck water if there was a fire. And I know it was an inspection. I know there was some recoating. And I'm thinking 15 to 17 years ago. So it was quite a while. And it was for the summer. We were no water pressure in Cobden for the summer for fire. Sorry, but I can't come up with a date. So this one, I was surprised when you said after useful usage of 30 years. Well, it's already been done once, and Councillor McLaughlin might remember. Was it around 2000? Yeah.
You'll have to use your microphone, Councillor
Yeah,
McLaughlin.
they emptied the tower. It was went down empty for the summer.
I remember, and maybe Steve could help us out on that one.
No, Steve can't remember either, so.
It was before my
I
time.
don't remember. I remember it being done, but
Yeah.
I don't remember the time.
No. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with this time.
Well, I'm satisfied with the 15 years ago, roughly, when I was about 20, so that, I'm good with that. Thank you.
That was a good one. And I know Mayor Moore did ask about the flat roof with regards to doing something about the birds, but are we able to do anything about the birds? And maybe if we're up there and we're doing the roof, it would be nice to do something, because I'm sure the acidity that is created by, and as well as the weight of all of the birds, waste, it causes an issue with regards to the roof, because I remember something coming up about that before. So it would be nice if we could do something, and I don't know what that something is, but if you could look into that, and if there's a huge cost difference, but we should definitely, and I think it might as well reduce the overall bird colonization there if they don't have this flat roof to sit on. They may go somewhere else, hopefully not down the lake and to my house, but yeah, I mean, it does cause a massive disaster all over the area. I mean, the bird waste is, 1 year it was on the docks, and it was awful. You couldn't even walk on the docks. So I would hope that we'd be able to do something at this time when the roofers are up there. And they may have a suggestion, because they may have had something to do with that with regards to flat roofs. So just a question. Councillor Mackay.
Fishing line. I had trouble with keeping pigeons out of my barn, and I strung fishing line. They don't want to hit that with their wings. So you have to make a pattern over the roof, but that would keep them off there.
That would certainly
Very
help.
cheap, too.
And it's cheap, yep. Might be worthwhile. Any other questions? Okay, Sean?
All right, thank you. Now moving on to wastewater. We'll start with kind of the capital and just key highlights here. With the budget we presented, we do have a transfer to reserves of about 138,000. We have two major capital items here. Cobden Wastewater CCTV project will assist in the asset management program for indexing sewer mains and identifying deficiencies. And then we have a $15,000 Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant final clarifier repairs. And I'll just read a little description on that if I can get my mouse to work here. Max hydraulic capacity of 95 meters cubed per hour. One circular final clarifier measuring 9.75 meters in diameter with an effective surface area 56.56 meters squared, representing an upflow rate of 1.65 meters cubed per hour at 95 meters cubed per hour, which is a minimum sidewall depth of 3 meters at tank wall. So this project, we have at about $15,000. And then to compare to the rates, or sorry, to show the rates, how we have them broken down with residential, small commercial, medium, and so on. We have a total of 500 total rates on our wastewater system, or so 5 units on our wastewater system. And then to show the comparables between last year and this year with the rate. So like I mentioned earlier, it was about a 55 something a month increase that the study that we got done called for. We have that at down to 27.63 per month for a residential unit. And you see for the different different classes there. So essentially, we've cut that in half from what the study that we had asked or called for. And then just to see, because we do have a small contribution to reserve on waterworks, and then a larger one on sewer, to show the beginning and ending balances of those reserves. So you see there's a very, very small amount in water, and then we do have some in sewer that we'll be using for future capital works. And then one last slide before I turn it back to the chair is just a slide on the debt that are on the books for the two at this point. So for water, there's a handful of projects, and then for sewer, there's also a handful of 3 projects that we have right now. So at that point, I will turn it back to the chair. And just to clarify, that's not new debt. That is debt existing on the books. We haven't proposed any new debt for the water wastewater. This is just what's on the books at this point, just to clarify. Turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. I guess I do have a question with regards to both water and wastewater, with regards to the users and units. Have we ever got new definitions for small commercial, medium commercial, and high commercial? Has that ever been defined? Because I know that there was some issues with regards to where some people thought they should be, and I don't know if that ever did get resolved over the years.
We do have we do have
Steve-
definitions. I think the last time that I know that they were looked at was in 2015. And there's a multitude of definitions that for some unit that wouldn't fit into this these main ones. Mostly they're based off of, if I recall correctly, and I apologize, I don't have them in front of me, square footage and type of use. But we are working with the type of water systems we have in a flat rate. There is a lot of working with people that are calling and asking about where they fit in terms of, they used to be a commercial building, but now it's a residential building. So we're making those as we are aware of them. But back to your original question, the definitions have not changed, at least since 2015 that I know of.
Thank you. And do we have any usage information with regards to any car washes or breweries as far as usage? Because I understand that they are not metered.
That is correct. They're not metered. I would turn it to either Lane or Steve to speak to amount of usage at those facilities if they have any information that I don't have.
We would have any additional information, just because they're not metered, so we wouldn't have any usage or not.
Would we have information from pre-brewery to now, what the actual usage of the water has increased?
We would have that. We'd have to.
And is it large? I guess, like if it's large, perhaps the high commercial isn't enough to cover the actual usage, because I would think, their business has increased drastically. The amount of beer that they are brewing, and they are using a lot of water, and they're also having a lot of waste. There's some waste as well to that. But I would have hoped at the time that it wasn't built that it would have been metered. And I don't understand why it wasn't at the time, but it certainly wasn't. I don't know, like it's a high user. So is a car wash. I don't know how many people use the car wash, but I know I see it regularly used when I drive past. So that is a high user as well. Restaurants, yes, while they have some high uses, but it's not near as much as either of those businesses. So I don't know if there's other businesses out there that use quite as much as the others, but certainly correct, I don't know what kind of uses the old age homes use, both in Beachburg and, I don't know if Beachburg one is on water at all. No, it's on well. So it'd be just the Cobden one. But it'd be interesting to see what those usages are and whether or not we could ask them to install a meter, or we pay for the meter and see what kind of use they're getting, because I can only imagine that it's a lot.
Madam Chair, if I can add, there's some existing industrial businesses even in Beachburg that based on what they're producing, would also be high users. I know the water study recommended that we look at if we meter, and is it by category, and do we prioritize the project? So we did get some information from Madawaska Valley that recently updated their meters, so we have a sense of what that cost would be. So staff will look at that for future budgets in terms of that. And the other piece, to go back to the definitions, Ivan's work with zoning and clarifying the zonings, we'll get a little bit of information on current uses, which I think that will dovetail well into updating and coming back to council on those types of uses and the definitions. So those two pieces would come later. So if we know, for instance, that, as Sean said, people only call us when they realize what they're being charged, but when we get a sense of the actual uses from a zoning perspective out there in the villages, that'll give us some information that we can use to clarify the definitions further. So we kind of looked at it for this year for meters, but I think it's probably a kind of a 2-year, 3-year project to look at. But we can definitely go and look at some of the uses and see the total plant use on water and water in and water out.
Thank you. Yes, and I had forgotten about some of the Beachburg businesses that are out there that uses a lot of water as well. So I think it's important. In some municipalities, they meter all the commercial. And if they don't meet, the minimum residential rate, then they get charged the residential rate for the uses. So there is a way around it, but all commercials, at least in Laurentian Valley, are metered, which is nice, because then you get a proper usage. Mayor Moore.
Thanks for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up. When you look at this list here, I know this list was formulated probably 25, 30, 35 years ago. A lot has changed since then. I can understand at the time why they have small, medium, and high, but right now I think all you have is high commercial. Everyone else would probably use less than a residential. I know it's unfortunate, but we want our small businesses to grow. We can't be taxing them to death, and we can't be charging them an arm and a leg for water. So I think this whole page should be looked at, if not this year, then in coming council years, and maybe formulate the rates for a better flow, for lack of a better term, as opposed to what's being charged now. And I'm always wondered why some of the businesses, and especially, I've been paying a water bill since 1977, and every time I pass some of these places and think of what I'm paying and what these people are using and what they're being charged for, there's no comparison. And it's taken this long for me to have my say for, it's got to be changed at some point. So I know I can't understand the difference when you get the 3 commercials. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, and I think there should be 1 commercial, and the high commercial should have meters. And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Moore. Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the mayor, wearing 2 hats. My business hat would say we have to be a bit careful that we have, if you look at high commercial, we have 10 high commercial businesses in the area, and we certainly don't want to do anything to discourage them from being around. I've just did some quick math on it, and high commercial is less than 4% of our total water revenue. So when you look at, we're doing about 78% of it is the residential small commercial, which is the same rate. So almost 80% of our rates, our revenue is actually derived from residential small commercial. Medium commercial is 4.7, and high commercial just under 4%. So we certainly, I'm in favor of looking at it for sure. I would just caution that, as the mayor stated, we've got to be careful when dealing with businesses, especially in this year. I know the one in Beachburg, I think, has had great years. Building's been on fire for sure. But I think businesses offer much more than just water rates and taxes to the community. So that's my comment. The only one question that I have is projections. So I know we had a study done on housing projections for the next, I think it was 15 or 20 years with respect to the water and wastewater rates. If you remember, they added so many properties per year, so we could see what we were up against for the wastewater issue, which looks pretty ugly. At hazard to say that you can throw all those projections out the window as of right now, because I would suspect they're going to continue. But I'd like to kind of relook at that after this budget. I don't think it'll impact this budget at all. We're looking at next year only. But I think that can get us out of a pretty tough spot in looking at wastewater rates in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, I certainly don't want to encourage that, I don't want to put anybody out of business. I just want to, it's the water and sewer is being backboned by the residential units, and they are not the high users. So that would be my comment. And we also don't want to charge the residents too much as well. So I think, to be fair, there has to be a way of looking at it in a better fashion, and that should be reviewed over the next couple of years, at minimum 2 years, if not sooner. Not to say that we're going to input them right away, but at least if it was reviewed and a recommendation was come back, whether or not you can put a meter on for a temporary purpose to meter some of them to see what kind of uses they're getting, just to see on average what that would be per month. But there has to be a way of doing that. Rob?
I just wanted to reiterate one point that we really haven't touched on, but the wastewater rates, the sewer rates are really driven by debt. And I just want to make that point that I think Steve, Lane, and Sean have done their best to reduce the number that was in the study. We talked at the last meeting of the number of road jobs where there's a sewer line or a water line that needs to be done. We know there's a lot of that work to come. We know that growth will be great, but we'll have some pressures, for instance, on Astrolab and on Robertson and Beachburg. So growth, there will be some pressures from growth as well. But I think the main feature here is to reiterate that there's $6 million for that plant that is going to come on board. So although this year we've been able to cut the increase in half, and yes, there's money going into reserve, that will put us in a good place as the project is done, is through substantial completion, and those debt payments hit the book. So I think the staff did a good job of trying to reduce the increase as much as they could, and doing so in a kind of reasonable, financially responsible manner. But a lot of the costs on the wastewater side are driven by that plant, and that plant allows us to help the lake and grow within the village of Cobden, which I think those are two very important things if we talk about your strat plan about environment and growth, and infrastructure being the other 3 of 4 pillars. That project deals with all 3, and that's what's driving the cost here for wastewater.
Absolutely. Mayor Moore.
Sorry, one more question. This goes to Sean. The reserves for water, was that 176,000 or wastewater 176,000 unreserved?
The ending balances?
Yeah.
So we have an ending balance, we're going to have an ending balance in water of about 24,000 and in sewer about 386. So I have on the screen up here. So we have estimated start for 2021 in water about 165. We're going to contribute in 2021 about 9,000 based on what we have, the rates and everything else.
So is there work coming up that we need such big reserves in water and wastewater?
Well, there's going to be some road work. So when we go to do some road work in the villages, I guess for this purpose in Cobden, there's going to be a sewer component for those. I know the discussion was with Crawford. I believe that's on the radar. I believe that has a sewer component. We have a couple engineered. Lynn Lane can clarify which jobs are engineered, but there will be some significant work that sewer is going to have to pay for some of when we go to redo some of these streets and some of the infrastructure.
And if I can just add, that 137 that's going in this year, next year will get eaten up by debt. So if you don't put that money in reserve next year, you're going up in 2022 regardless, because the plant will be at substantial completion and the debenture will be on the books. So we're kind of spreading out the the pain or the joy of having a brand new sewage plant. So this year it allows us to put money in reserve, but that room won't be there next year because it's going to help cover new debt.
Okay, that was my question. All right, thanks.
Councillor Mackay.
This probably goes to Lane. Do you know when that, or maybe Steve, do you know when that plant's going to be open now?
So we'll be in 2021. They'll be finished up. Then it'll be commissioning. So by Q2 or Q3 of 2021, it'll be up and running.
Weren't they supposed to be ready this fall? Didn't they say November? Did I hear that wrong?
It was supposed to be for October 31st, but I'm careful with my words to say, but they were a few months ago that they were like pre-pandemic. I guess they're about 4 months behind, so that puts us into February or so. Then with COVID and with the supplies, it's pushing a little longer. But if you want, I can get council maybe in the next quarterly report. I think I actually did provide an update when it's going to be actually be on the books.
And if I could just add, Lane is being cautious because per the contract, there's some deliverables in there and some there's some obligations on the contractor, and there's some provisions for us as well. And so we're getting some advice on that we'll bring forward to council. But I would say for a project, a $10 million project, to be 3 months behind on substantial completion is not out of the question, especially when there was blasting, COVID, and weather-related events. So I think it's generally good news.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nicholson.
Chair, this one's for you. So, I've heard comments come from Councillor Olmsted and the mayor and yourself about this, and I have to admit I'm not completely familiar with this, but it sounds like we've asked staff to do 3 different things. Can we just clarify exactly what we've asked staff to do with these, with the water rates?
Water and sewer?
No, specifically with water and our commercial versus residential and volumes of water and prices. We've all had comments. They're not exactly all the same, so I just want to make sure that we don't have staff doing triple the work. It's
Yeah.
clear what we want them to do.
One is to identify which areas should be metered and which areas shouldn't be metered. The other is to review the definitions and make sure they're defined okay. And if we change from small, medium, and high commercial, then perhaps we just have one commercial rate and a metered rate for the high, that all those get metered. And I don't know about a third one, if it was with regards to the roof at the water treatment plant, but...
And Madam Chair, those two are in keeping with the study that you adopted as a guiding document. So those were to do down the road.
Yes.
And we've taken note of those and we'll be working on them over the next 18 months, just to be safe in terms of if you're going to roll out meters or review your classes, it will take some time. The other thing is, if you collapse your classes, then the study would have to be updated, because the whole underlying data and the division basically is changed. So we've taken that away as the chair enumerated the definitions and the meters, as well as the roof.
Yeah, and I certainly don't recommend metering everybody, just high commercial.
And sorry, I just wanted it to be specific here, just to make sure that we knew we weren't asking for 3 different things. So no, those, you covered the 2, and I think that covers it off.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin.
I just looking for clarification on the CCTV. Is that a camera that goes, is that to do camera work in the sewer lines? Is that correct?
That is correct. So it will help with our asset management to get an index of our sewer.
Okay, so would that, if a resident wanted for some reason to have their sewer line camera, would we be able to do that at a cost? Is that something we could maybe think about, or?
It's typically a different type of camera.
Okay.
This is when you go in the mains, it's a crawling camera. They do have ones that from the sewer they can launch up, but it's a lot more expensive than just a regular inspection.
Lynn, do we not already have a camera, or is that camera gone, or
We don't have a camera.
we don't? I thought well, I'm sure we purchased one years ago.
If it was, it could have been a push camera that used for laterals.
We did have one, sorry to interrupt. But it came for useful life, you know, one of them electronic things that has to be upgraded. And if you don't upgrade it, or if it doesn't get the right upgrade, it's no good. You know, like your old computer.
Okay, because I was just thinking through my,
And that goes back to the previous employee. He's working at Laurentian Valley now. He used to use that. And then the new public works manager looked at it, and then it fell apart, and then we contracted out when we needed one.
okay, because I've had a few calls with people looking at, and I wasn't sure, because I know we did used to have one, but I won't hold up things anymore. I just needed clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify for Councillor Nicholson, which may have been a bit confusing. So my request was not for this year, but in perhaps sometime next year, if we could revisit the housing projections with respect to the wastewater study. So they had X number of houses for the next, I think, 10 or 15 years. I can't remember the projections they had out. But COVID has changed all that drastically for this year, and I assume it's going to be next year as well. So I think some of those numbers will change drastically along with the housing projections. So I think it's a good thing, to be honest with you.
And Madam Chair, I know that Ivan's working on the growth study, which is the planning side of things, and they didn't have the same units, but the growth study next steps are coming very soon back to council, which basically said we needed more employment lands and we were generally okay for residential. So I would say, though, those projections were still optimistic. So although we've had a mini boom with COVID, so Ivan, the planner, will track those as we go from year to year based on what was projected.
Thank you. And yes, that is correct. Thanks for the reminder. Anything else? Councillor Mackay?
Just want to say about metering, there was a guy bought a house in Haley's campsite, or town site, sorry, and somebody said, well, isn't the water price expensive? He had 5 kids and he moved from Renfrew, where they were metered, and he cut his water costs in half. So if you have a big use of even residential, meters can be dangerous. Just saying. Thank you.
Both ways. So what can happen is you install meters in residential, everybody starts cutting back to save funding, save their costs. However, the rates then have to increase because the same overall cost of maintaining everything remains the same. So your revenue goes down, but your expenses stay the same. So then your rates have to go up to offset. So yeah, and Renfrew did meter a number of years ago, and Empire changed their meters, and I would not recommend that. Okay.
Well, that brings this presentation to a conclusion. I just have the advertisement for the public meeting. So at that, we can move on.
Awesome. Sure. Councillor Nicholson?
For that public meeting, Sean, is the public able to forward questions to us electronically before that could be addressed? Maybe we could go to answer questions or something at some agenda item through the public meeting?
Yeah, so I'll bring it back up here so we can just take a look at it from current. So I think this should be it. Yeah, so here we're saying to forward questions to me. Questions and submissions should be submitted by December 4th to me, and then at that point, like I'm assuming I would probably speak to them, especially if they're going to call and address their question, and then bring forward from kind of what I hear from the public at that point council.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically, will we hear that question read to you, if someone forwards it to you before, you'll read that question to us in the public meeting and answer it?
No. So
Okay.
what'll likely happen is that there'll be a compilation, just like if
Okay.
somebody submits a comment, we'll get those to council. But I would think that it might be a Q&A document, that if Sean did some clarification on an item, that you would get that information. And then anybody who wishes to speak to council in the electronic meeting, again, it's not the Spanish Inquisition. It's not like asking, this is my chance to ask 50 questions of each member of staff and each member of council. It's, what is your position? What are your concerns? And they state those, and then they're noted for the record. So this started appearing in the block ad last week, and over the next little while between now and by going through this part of the budget, that will all be updated and consolidated in the news section of the website by the end of this week. So all that information is already on our website and will be consolidated for the meeting.
Okay, I'll pass it over to the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to item 3.2, 2021 proposed fees and charges. Recommendation that the Committee of a Whole receive the draft 2021 user fee schedules for discussion in advance of the public meeting scheduled for December 9th, 2020. Motion and a seconder, please. Councillor Olmsted and Councillor Mackay. All in favor? Thank you. We turn this over to the chair, please.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, Sean can...
Sean?
Yeah, I would just have a quick question for Carmen. I'm just wondering if she's going to take over the screen there.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So we'll bring the report up. I can unplug my stuff if you would like.
I don't think it matters.
No, let's just continue. Okay, I'll move on then. So I'll just move on. I'll start going through my report here. So every year during the budget process, we take a look at our fees and charges. And I've just done a quick covering report to all the schedules. So just to kind of put in perspective, for our proposed budget, user fees would represent about 28% of our proposed tax levy. So in essence, if we took out the revenue that we would receive from user fees, then we would have to increase our tax levy by that amount. So the whole point of that line in the report is that they represent a significant portion of our revenues. We've added increasing our inspection rates kind of across the board, and then an introduction of a COVID-19 related cleaning fee. That would only be when required. So if there was something where we were required to bring in extra cleaning for whatever reason, we in turn would be able to recoup some of that through a user fee. And I will note, and I'll speak to it before we go through, or won't go through, I'll pass it back to the chair here for questions regarding the schedules. And we have managers here to answer any questions. I'll go get ahead of the curve here a little bit on the curbside collection charge. So last year was the first year that we introduced it. And I spoke to it earlier during the operating budget. We don't propose any increase to that. We heard from about 20 residents / commercial units throughout after we sent out the tax bills. The majority of those were some seasonal residents. So I would say that from all the ones that we sent out, hearing from 20 was kind of, honestly, I thought pretty good. Could have been a lot more for sure. So in any event, I just want to get ahead of it before we turn it back to the chair, that we don't recommend increasing that fee. That fee would stay the same, and wanted to let council know that we heard from about 20 people when those bills went out. So at that point, I'll turn it back over to the chair and for questions.
I'm not sure about anybody else, but I only have Schedule D on my iPad. Refresh it. There, I hadn't refreshed it.
I'm just going to grab a coffee while we do that.
And Madam Chair, if I can just add while while everybody's doing that is that for arenas, the landfill, planning and building, the managers looked at comparators across Renfrew County and came to an average. So I know last year, for example, in planning and building specifically, we adjusted some rates based on that, but we didn't make tons of changes. So the changes you're seeing for planning, building, arenas, and landfill are really based on those comparators. So I just want to do that. And another quick one I can deal with is we were asked to look at lifetime dog tags. The only municipality that offers it is Madawaska Valley. They pay $25 regardless if the dog is fixed or not, or the age of the dog. So I guess if you move to the township and your dog is 9 years old, you're paying $25, even though their lifespan might be a little less than puppy. The issue for us is, yes, there's been a bit of a decline in pickup of dog tags. However, it's still fairly healthy and it pays for all costs associated with that program. So while we understand that it's something we have to continue looking at this point, it brings in enough revenue to offset the costs of enforcement. And we've looked at our bylaw, tightened it up, added a bunch of penalties to discourage bad behavior. And you'll see we've also increased, if your dog has to be impounded, those fees. But at the current time, we don't feel that a lifetime tag should be explored, or if a lifetime tag would also be probably as effective as eliminating the tag completely, which I know one councillor has said maybe just cover this from taxes. But the fees here actually cover the program, which is kind of the intended rule. So that we're not recommending a lifetime tag at this time.
Councillor McLaughlin, do you have a question?
I don't think this is a time to debate this, but I think we need to bring that up on the agenda at some point, the dog tag, because as the CAO has said, the cost is being covered, but that's only cost by the honest people that are purchasing. That's my craw. It's the honest people that are paying for it all.
Okay, do we have any questions with regards to the schedules A through E? Mayor Moore.
I do, but Doug's not here, so maybe I'll plunk this on Ivan's lap. Under building, there's a $100 fee for installation of solid wood fuel burning, but in brackets it has outdoor wood burning, etc., and that's been a bone of contention too, but nowhere in here does it mention pellet stoves, and pellet stoves have been a bone of contention over the years and have caused the fire department numerous calls, so I'm wondering if there's anything in there now and if pellet stoves are part of it. Can you answer that?
I'm uncertain whether or not the Ontario Building Code governs pellet stoves, but I could confirm that with Doug and provide an email to council in relation to that. If they do require a permit, then that would fall under that category for the $100.
Yeah, see, they never used to be covered, but I was kind of hoping they would be because there's a lot of them out there. And they're buying these cheap pellets wherever they can get them, or corn from the farmer, and causing problems. So it can certainly put the fire department in costly ventures. 3 or 4 of them a winter, and it's a lot of money for the fire department. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I'm sorry, as I'm getting old, I'm already forgetting. So what fee were you mentioning? We had 20 people contact back.
That's the curbside collection fee.
Okay.
The one that appeared on the tax bill to essentially have your waste and recycling picked up.
Okay.
So instead of collecting through the garbage bag program, that fee that we introduced.
Out of the 50 people I've heard from, I've had 1 negative comment so far, so I think we're on the right track there. My one question is the ECDEV fee, or I can't remember the actual term that we coined for new development. When does that fee take place? Is that January 1st?
Are you speaking to the development charge?
Yes.
I believe we still have to go through I'll let Ivan speak to the process on that maybe.
Yeah, so where we stand now with the development charge study is that the consultants completed the background study, which is the crux of the study. The next step was the public meeting, and with COVID having hit, we're finding it difficult to to hold that public meeting in person, because this is has some impacts to the community, and definitely we want to meet with them in person rather than virtually. So the project's been sort of postponed until we could potentially meet in person, or we could examine virtual options. So while nothing's being proposed at this time for the commencement of 2021, we'll re-examine it first thing next year and come back to council with an update on that. Thanks.
Great, super, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Moore?
Okay, I'm moving on to Parks and Rec, if that's okay. So Jordan's here. I'm inquiring about the user fees for ice surface. I was wondering if there was any consideration for Kayla's Club and, for the lack of a better term, the Canadian Tire Club. I can't remember what's that called, for get kids started hockey. Do we have a separate rate for them or not?
So they fall under our minor rate.
Did we have a special rate for them before?
There may have been one in the Rec Association days, but
Yeah.
as far as township, they would fall right underneath our minor rate.
And if I could add, Mr. Mayor, and then the community recreation grants would be available for them for a fee waiver. So we don't lose the revenue, we just offset it through the grant program.
Okay, I just didn't want them slipping through the fingers, that's all. And then I have another question too, it's a COVID-related question, and it's under Schedule C for admin charges. So this would, I'm assuming, would be for the hall downstairs, an extra $20 an hour on top of the rent charged if they were using the building and we had to COVID clean, is that?
And only if we had like a back-to-back booking where that we had to do a deep clean in a very short period of time. So both for Jordan and Parks and Rec and for the hall downstairs, it would only be if required. So if it's, but right now, to be honest, we're not, that hall downstairs is not of a sufficient size where we can really do a lot of that, but it's just in the event we have a short turnaround and have to do a deep clean.
Okay, it's just that $20 seems cheap, that's all. Okay, thanks.
Sir Nicholson?
I'm going to follow up on the mayor's comment there about the rec. I like the fact that they're rounded numbers this year. It makes it nice and easy for me to remember. And I do acknowledge that this may not be the right year with the grants, but we do have the ability with that grant program to subsidize specific activities we want to focus on as a township. And in that way, we can lower those rates to encourage those activities. And I think we've empowered the staff to be able to do that. So I think that's the right way to go there. The one area I would ask that we take investigation in this year, and I know I'm not going to propose a change to the fee schedule as it stands, is the use of the slab rentals, that hourly rate. I'm wondering if we can dig into that a little bit closer. I know that some arenas have installed some LED lighting, which has reduced their hourly operating costs. And I'm just wondering if there's a way we can confirm whether $50 is really a true cost, or could we reduce that further within reason? And I just asked that for a future down the road initiative. I do want to ask a second question. Can I keep going? I got a couple questions.
You keep going.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I can just on that one.
Sorry.
Just because it did come up, Jordan and I did talk about it. The hall downstairs is $30 an hour, and then the full big slab is $50 an hour. So when you look at those proportionally, it doesn't seem out of whack, but yes, we'll take it under advisement. These fees are always kind of on top of mind, trying to get it right, but we'll make note of it. But I just wanted to point out that a lot of our users down there are grandfathered, but if you were going to rent the hall downstairs for an hour, it's $30. The slab is $50, so, and you're getting a lot more real estate.
Yeah, no, and I can't argue against this square footage comparison, but some users are only needing one pickleball court as an example, but they're forced to rent the whole slab. So yes, they can access the community grant, but I'm just wondering if there's another way we could scope this. If there isn't, great, but I'd like to take a stab at it. Kennels, I don't know who's going to talk about kennels, but I know the rate there was $80 per kennel. I'm just curious, did we have people register as kennels since the last bylaw amendment?
And Carmen can add to this in terms of enforcement. So same with chickens. I know we're starting to get requests. And Carmen, I don't know, have we had, and also backyard chicken coops?
Yeah. So I've issued one kennel license last year, and so far I've had a payment for backyard chickens, but I have not received any applications, so I have to hunt down who gave me the money and why. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
So I think what's important here is that it's a new fee, and we want to make sure that people are compliant, and our communication will focus on making sure everybody gets to compliance. And then once that happens, I was walking in Westmeath one morning and heard a lovely rooster as an example, which is not permitted. So what we're trying to do is inform people, get them through the process, educate them, communicate with them, and then enforcement will follow.
Councillor Olmsted? You didn't have any questions? I have a question with regards to the ice rental for the junior bees. Where do they sit now?
So what we decided to do, which made a little bit more sense to us, is take them out of the user fees because of how the contract falls. So our user rates don't begin until August 1st. Contract will have expired. We'd have to renegotiate. So what we're going to do is keep their fees in line with our actual approved fees that come into effect August 1st.
What rate?
So if you take a look at, just as an example, junior B game is in line with an adult prime rate of 183.48. So they would go to the 185 if approved.
Okay. As long as it's clear. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. And I know this was brought up. I'm looking at the hall rentals, and for the minor hockey does use the hall for the tournaments, and I think that there should be a special cost for the minor hockey, and I know I'm sure I brought that up during one of the council meetings, and I thought that was looked at, and because I don't think that they should pay the same rate as somebody else that's going to rent the hall.
We did discuss that, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can comment on that if you'd like. So last year we tried to tighten up all of our rates and try and become more consistent. So what we did was we removed the actual minor tournament rate, and we just included with our minor prime / tournament. So you'll see the first one says prime / tournament. So we just combined the two to make it easier. Yeah, so the hall is included with the rental as well for tournaments.
So they currently pay $121.20 per hour, and we'll pay $125, and that will give them, for minor tournaments, as Jordan is saying, the ice and the hall.
That's right, and it's
Okay.
because
No.
they're booking for between 8 to 10 hours of ice.
Okay, that makes sense, and that covers my concerns. I think that's fair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Sorry, and this is just right in the weeds. In the things listed for the dump, it says trees, sorry, the landfill. Yes, quite appropriate. Trees, large branches, stumps, roots, timber, and logs not accepted. Or no, tipping fees applied? So we do accept them. We didn't in the past.
We've accepted them. We don't accept stumps, but we've accepted logs and bigger trees and whatnot. So what is proposed in this new schedule is that if you have branches in excess of 3 inches in diameter, you're now going to pay for it, whereas it's always been free.
And what's driving that?
We have grinding costs, very high costs, and we use that for cover material. So it's just to, I mean, your smaller branches and leaves and yard waste is still free, but if you're hauling in trees, it's the grinding cost that's driving it.
Perfect. And stumps aren't permitted
No,
at all,
the-
just
the-
because we can't grind them?
We can grind them, but it's very hard on the grinder, so we prefer not to take them.
So the only alternative is for a landowner to get a burn request and burn it, or bury it, or
Or bury it. It's pretty hard to burn a stump. Yeah,
Good.
yeah, bury it. Yeah.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Mayor Moore.
Okay, moving on. I think this one's Carmen. Under lottery events, I see here it's just sort of general and 3% and whatever, but now the rage is catch the ace. Does that make a difference on their licensing? Does that catch the ace, something like that fall under what we have?
It does. So we still charge the 3% off of the, so we could do it a few ways. I do it after the whole amount is won, so it's 3% of the whole.
Yeah.
So if it's, and we can't go, say it gets to $50,000 at 3% of 50,000.
Okay, just wanted to check on that because that seems to be the rage now. Okay, thanks.
And that's the maximum that we can charge, so. Yep. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll pass it over to the mayor. I think that's it. Do we need to vote on the motion?
I think the mayor called it to go into close, so we'll just carry forward this information to the public meeting and then the bylaws and all that stuff.
Okay,
thank
I
you.
just have one thing. I like the idea of the user fee compilation where we can compare. Did you see that in your report? It's a comparison of other fees and where we sit in the scheme of things. It's nice to have that. So thank you to everyone for working on their hard, diligent work. I know it's a excruciating pain since September to try and get this accomplished and for us to actually look at it. So thank you all very much for your hard work. And now, are we excusing the staff now and we are going into closed, or?
We can move the motion and then kick out some select people.
Okay. Okay, we're moving on to item 4, closed session. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region move into closed session at 6 p.m. as permitted under Section 9 of the procedural bylaw, with staff participating in the meeting to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or board, meaning the industrial park agreement. Motion is seconder, please. Reeve Regier and Councillor Jackson. All in favor, we're enclosed at 6:01. Thank you. Motion to rise and report, please. All in favor? Rise and report? Yeah, okay, we're out of closed session at 6:32.
Right?
Mr. Mayor, I received direction in closed session regarding an industrial park full and final release with a property owner in the industrial park.
Okay, so at this time, do we need a vote, or we're just going to carry on? You're going to do what you have to do. Do we need a,
No, just adjournment.
okay, this time, motion and seconder for adjournment. 1, 2. Thank you very much. We're adjourned. 6:33.